Never fails. Hit record, start to yawn. Alright, so today is still Monday. I just posted something, and as you can see, here I am posting again, as I said I would. And yes, I'm going to have another cigarette for this. Every so often, thoughts pop into my head of a significant or notable nature. And like most people, I think, wow, that's notable. I should share that. And just as quickly, it flies itself out of my head. Well, I'm going to try and sit still and give you a few of them. I'm going to start with the one that is currently in my head, which has to do with female mindedness. That's an unfamiliar phrase to you, right? Yeah, I thought so. Alright, when I say female mindedness, I am referring to those who have a generally feminine frame of mind. Now, why do I say generally feminine frame of mind? Well, because as part of the queer community, I know quite a few people, straight, gay, trans, or otherwise, who are much more feminine-minded than male-minded, gender notwithstanding, okay? Some of them happen to actually be genetically female. Several of them, actually several more of them, aren't. Some of them don't gender identify at all. So, that's what I mean when I say feminine-minded. All that considered, it's been my experience, personally and with these friends of mine, that there are certain things you shouldn't do when dealing with someone who is, in fact, significantly more feminine-minded. Now, I personally walk the borderline. I identify as female, which I happen to have been genetically born as well. But many of my talents, many of my hobbies, many of my personality traits and quirks are what a lot of people would call butch or masculine or just dude-like. I like DIY. I like watching certain kinds of sports like soccer. I mean professional English soccer leagues. A lot of people have told me I have a more butch or more whiskey-like voice, meaning it's a deeper register or cadence. But, given my physical dimensions, you can't argue that I'm a girl. Given my predilections for wanting to conceive and give birth, it is more strong evidence that I am feminine-minded and happen to also be feminine physically capable. In my personal view and in my experience, here's some simple things, or not so simple things, to keep in mind when dealing with someone who is significantly more feminine-minded than male-minded, okay? 1, please, never call us a name you're not okay being called yourself. Now, the stereotype here is men calling their girlfriends or wives crazy. There are many other words it could be, but that's the first one that I think of, because it's a stereotype. All human beings are crazy. Every last fucking one of us. If you're calling someone else crazy, all it means is you're terrified of how honest they're being, and how much of it is coming at you at such a high rate. Okay? Don't make it about them being crazy. Do yourself a huge favor and adhere to rule or tip number 2. Don't talk about them, talk about you. In this situation, when you're at the point of calling your partner crazy, feminine-minded partner crazy, stop. Honest to God, stop. Just stop talking. Even if they're completely confused by the fact that you've suddenly shut up entirely. And think, just to the count of 3, just, Mississippi, Mississippi, Mississippi. And try and ask yourself, why do I think they are crazy? What's actually pissing me off? Put this particular cigarette out right now. Okay? What is it that's actually irking you? Because I guarantee you, it's not as much the other person as you're making it out to be. Those of us who are feminine-minded have a significantly high respect for honesty. Now, honesty can be gentle. Honesty can be brutal. Honesty can be any one of 1,000 shades of gray in between. But you know what? If what you interrupt a feminine-minded person with when they have a need to rail at you, if your interjection is honesty, I am willing to bet at least 70% of the time they will stop in their tracks because they know what rings true. Here's a scenario for you. You're in combat. You're having that word joust back and forth with this feminine-minded person, and you say something to them, and you see the light go off in their eyes. You know you've crossed a line, and they react to the fact that you've crossed a line. May not be your line, doesn't have to be. You've crossed their line. They react as expected when you do such a thing, and go ballistic. If you react by saying, "Man, you're crazy," you're only fueling the fire. Stop at that point and respond with something that is true. Respond with, "I don't know why you're yelling at me." Respond with, "I don't know what line I've crossed. What did I do to piss you off? I am sincerely lost right now. Explain it to me." But here's a word of caution. Do not ask a feminine-minded person to explain something to you when they're angry unless you are A, willing to hear the explanation and truly listen, and B, you're willing to accept that they're in a point of frustration where they're going to explain it to you like you're a fucking moron for not knowing what's going on. They're not going to mean to. I've done this to Sam. I know from experience, okay? The feminine-minded person is not going to think, okay, they've interjected with an honest exclamation of confusion. They're going to think, how the fuck do you not know what you did? That's what they're going to think. And they're going to have to stop too. It's not the easiest thing to stop when you're in that mindset and say, all right, I've lost them. They're confused. I'm going off like a nut job because of reasons they don't understand. You're going to have to let them vent for a little while. You're going to have to let them explain in a tone that's condescending, in a tone that, would otherwise be seen by outsiders as them treating you, like I said, as if you're a fucking moron. It's not, strictly speaking, intended that way. It's just they don't understand why you don't understand at that point. So, when dealing with someone feminine-minded, don't throw out names like crazy. And be willing to accept that your honesty is going to be one of the only things, if not the only thing, that's going to halt the process that's already begun. Okay? You're basically rechanneling lava flow. It's going to continue to come. You can just save yourself from the bulk of it. Another tip I would give you for dealing with the feminine-minded. is on the same theme of honesty. In this case, I'm suggesting that it's a preventative course of action. So tip 3 I would give you is be upfront to begin with. I'm not saying make yourself an open book. I'm not saying lay every single skeleton in your closet, every dirty secret piece of laundry you have out for everyone's view. I'm saying if you're in a situation with someone who's feminine minded, and it's a situation where there is a level of emotional intimacy, physical intimacy notwithstanding, you may have that too, but if emotional intimacy is what you're aiming for a solid basis of, be upfront to begin with. If you're afraid of commitment, own it. Own it. If you're afraid of where things are going, that things are going too fast or too slow, own it. You would be amazed what a feminine-minded person is willing to deal with if they know it. And this is something that Sam and I had to work on too, because Sam has a very good grasp on his feminine side, the same way I have a relatively good grasp on my masculine side. And one of the first things we had to get through in that initial confrontational dating period, because both of us have histories and issues that we have to deal with, let alone dealing with each other's, is that I made it clear to him, I can deal with practically anything. I can accept damn near anything. But I can't accept what I don't know. If you have a problem with me, then have a problem with me. Okay? Wording emphasis counts. Have that problem with me. Okay? Tell me I'm confused by this. Tell me I have a problem with this. Tell me I don't know what to do. Tell me this situation, this topic scares me. Every human being has the right and the ability to be afraid of something, or many things. But there's absolutely no way to reasonably expect you're going to get through it if you don't own it. None. Which is why I am lucky enough to be in a relationship that I'm in the marriage that I'm in. Because I was upfront about my flaws. And to this day, we've been married almost 2 years. We've been together 5. To this day, whether it's a jovial conversation or a real argument, Sam can say something to me anywhere along the line of spectrum from A, you're capable of being quite a bitch, all the way to getting so pissed off he looks me in the eye and says, you're a fucking bitch. And the only reaction he's going to get from me is, uh-huh. And? How is that relevant? I know who I am. I told you who I am. I've made it clear. I have an extreme capacity for jealousy. I have an extreme capacity for being possessive. I have an extreme capacity for being a flaming bitch. I know that. I can no more deny that about myself than I can deny how fat I am at the moment. How short my hair is. How white my skin is. It's a basic reality of who I am. I own it. But he understands, the same way I do in dealing with him, that when you're dealing with someone who's in a very feminine mind frame, you can't hide things. Feminine-minded people can't stand secrets. They can't. They don't like it because it breeds mistrust. So that's the end of this installment in that vein of thought, because I don't want to talk for excessively long, because with this kind of information, it's really possible to go on ad nauseum. So I'm going to stop myself now, because I need to have lunch. And, try and take that information along with you. Keep it in mind. You may or may not take it to heart. You may or may not think I'm out of my fucking mind for posting this. Either way, I felt the need to post it, and somehow you've listened up to this point. So I will see those of you who choose to watch the next posting at the next posting.